I'm glad you guys were brave enough to come out in this cold. Yeah, it is. It's very windy. It's very windy. So I'm excited to be here. I'm happy that Rabbi asked me to do this. If each person in here takes one thing away with them tonight that's been beneficial to them, I'd be a very happy camper. That would make me extremely happy. We're going to go ahead and start with a word of prayer, and then we'll jump right into it. Father, I thank you for opportunity. And Lord, I thank you that you've given me this opportunity to come before your people and talk to them and show them the things that you have been showing me and teaching me layer upon layer over the years. Let this be used not only for the benefit of your people, but let this be used for your glory that goes right back to you for your goodness to us. Watch over our family members that aren't here this night. Watch over Angela. Bring her back to perfect health. Watch over Ben, bring him back into perfect health. And anyone else in the congregation that's struggling with illness at this time, Lord. Watch over them, be gracious to them, and just fill them with your spirit and let them know that you are with them, that you have not left them. Let this be a good night. Let us have fun. Let there be laughter, but let us learn. In Yeshua's name, amen. Amen. I've got to find my Bible. Here it is. I find it interesting that the very first thing that God spoke to Adam after he created him was that he told him to be a gardener. Now, Adonai God took the person who he had formed from the dust of the earth and put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and care for it. Adonai God gave the person this order: you may freely eat from every tree in the garden except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You are not to eat from it, because on that day that you eat from it, it will certainly become death to you. Not only did he put him in the garden, but he gave him the command to take care of the plants, to take care of the shrubs, the trees, everything, the garden. His first job for anybody on the face of this earth was to be a gardener. And I just think that's pretty cool. Other things that he had spoke to us about being prepared in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, starting in verse 21. Also take from all, this is God speaking to Noah. Also take from all the kinds of food that are eaten and collect it for yourself. It is to be food for you and for them. This is what Noah did. He did all that God ordered him to do. Noah was the first prepper. We're called preppers in this day and age. Well, Noah was the first prepper ever, according to God's word. Not only did he prepare for himself and his family, but he prepared for every animal that God commanded him to put on the ark. That would have been a lot of food. He was the first prepper. Now we're going to go on over to Genesis. We're going to read about Joseph. You know the story how Joseph was sold into slavery, ended up in Egypt. Through no circumstances or fault of his own, he ended up in prison. While he was in prison, it became known that he could interpret dreams. Years on down, Pharaoh had a dream about the 7 years of famine and the 7 years of plenty. He wanted somebody that could interpret that dream, and he had sent for Joseph. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Then he left Pharaoh's presence and traveled through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the earth brought forth heaps of produce. He collected all the food of these 7 years in the land of Egypt and stored it in the cities. The food grown in the fields outside each day, he stored in that city as well. Joseph stored grain in quantities like the sand on the seashore. He did a lot of preparing, so much so that they stopped counting how much he accumulated because it was beyond measure. The 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all lands, but throughout the land of Egypt. Hi, guys. There was food. When the whole land of Egypt started feeling the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food, and Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph and do what he tells you to do. The famine was over all the earth, but then Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold food to the Egyptians, since the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all countries came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe throughout the earth. Because Joseph was obedient and did not only what God was showing him to do, but what Pharaoh was requiring of him, not only did Joseph save himself, his family, and the people of Egypt, he saved every nation around them. It says it right here. So we have a second example of a first-time prepper. So don't let anybody tell you it's not okay to prepare, to start getting ready. What I want to talk about now is just a couple things that Mike and I have seen in the news that is very disturbing, and even more of a reason why in this day and age I think people need to start getting ready and start preparing and start putting some food back. Get ready. It came across the news, and I've looked it up. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research into this. But the state of California is trying to pass legislation that allows bioengineered vaccine to be put in the foods, the produce that they grow, that they ship all over the United States. I find it interesting, and they're doing this experimentation at the University of Berkeley. Does that surprise anybody? No. So what I find interesting is several months ago, the FDA made the ruling that people who produce food, big companies, they no longer have to tell you what is in that food, and they no longer have to tell you where that food was even produced. So the two of those are just, how are you going to know that you've got something from California if it's no longer put on the labels? It's very important that we take control of our own food, that we get back to gardening, get back to bare roots, get back to canning and preserving your own foods. At least you're going to know what you're eating. It's very important to have seeds. Mike and I have 3 large tubs of seeds. Primarily all of them are heirloom seeds that we keep in the refrigerator and in the freezer. I've got seeds that will last us for years. We may need them. We have seeds that we can give to people if there's someone in need. And that's another thing. God doesn't want us to do all this just to take care of ourselves. He wants us to be a witness to other people. What about, say, somebody like Alice? There's no way she can garden. She has no family close here that can help take care of her. We're to help take care of the widow, the orphan, anyone who's in need. What about your neighbor that has 2 little kids that they may not know the Lord, but what a testimony to bring somebody to the knowledge of the Lord than giving out of abundance. And I'm a firm believer that the more we give, the more it's going to come back to us. That's scriptural. So it's very important that when we're doing our prepping and our preparing, our canning, our gardening, that we put some extra away that we can help those that are in need, because I think it's coming quick. I think it's coming very, very quickly that we're going to need and start seeing these things. Yes? Well, technically, we live on a farm. We have no animals. We have fruit trees. We have vineyards. We have gardens. We have berry bushes. We have asparagus patches. But we don't have the animals. But technically, yes, we do have kittens. We have beautiful little kittens. If anyone is looking for a pet right now, we have beautiful little kittens. So technically, yes, we live on a farm, but most of it is produce, fruit, things of that nature, which is what I love doing anyway. I would love to have chickens and some animals. What concerns me is because grain shortages are so great all over the world right now, people are struggling to have feed to feed their animals right now. Unless you have a big enough piece of land that you can even start raising the food for your own animals, where are you going to get that food from for the animals? So that's the one thing I think that's stopping Mike and I from fencing in part of our acreage and getting some animals. We don't, I'm an animal lover. It would break my heart if I had an animal that had nothing to eat. So would I love to have chickens and animals? Absolutely, yes, I would. Because I would love to have eggs to dehydrate myself. So that's the one thing that unless you get a good sale on eggs at the store, which it's hard to find a good sale on anything in this day and age right now, food-wise. Which brings me to another thing. Are you guys seeing shortages in your area over here in the grocery stores? We're seeing them in Marion as well. I was shocked when I was in Meyer. They had absolutely no milk, no heavy cream, very little cheese of any kind, and just empty hole after hole after hole on the shelves. We've got to start taking responsibility for growing what we can of our own food. And I'm not saying that you have to have acres and acres. If the only thing you can do is have a few pots on a patio with some tomato plants and some salad greens, do what you can do in the space that you have in the time that we have left. I'm not saying you have to do all this in a big variety of everything. Just do what you can with what you have. Anything is better than nothing. What I want to talk about tonight, a prudent person foresees the danger ahead and takes precautions. A simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. Could I have my lovely assistant? It's Vanna Mike. Would you hand one of those out to everybody, please? Please. Yeah, there's enough. Yep. What I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight are the different types of canning and food preservations that we do in our home. This is not a list of everything that can be done by any way, shape, or form, but it's what we do. Don't let all of this equipment freak you out and think, oh, there's no way I'll never have all that equipment. This has been many, many years of accumulating slowly over time what we have up here to work with. If all you have is a water bath canner, there's still things that you can do with it to feed your family. If you're fortunate enough to have a water bath canner and a pressure canner, it really expands what you can do. We're not going to have time tonight. Yes. Oh, you fill it with water. You put your jars in. You put the lid on. You bring it up to a boiling temperature. You have to cover the lids. You have to have at least an inch of water over the tops of all the jars. And then whatever your food preservation book tells you the amount of time it needs to be in the boiling water is how long you leave it in. Water bath canning is used for high acid foods only. You cannot do low acid foods in a water bath canner. Low acid foods have got to be pressure canned. Those would be meats, beans, broths, things of that nature that's low acid, because it's not safe to just water bath can it. So, yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about, we're not going to have time tonight to demonstrate how we can. What I want to do is I want to get a feel for everybody if you guys would be interested in doing like a 2-day workshop where we actually come to the church, use the kitchen, and do all these different types of food preservations here on site. I would like to do a Friday for people that are retired or do not work. I would like to do a Sunday for people that are still employed, that it might be easier for them to get here on a Sunday than on a Friday. So would you guys be interested in something like that? I can stand here and talk to you till I'm blue in the face about how to do this, but until you actually get in and do it yourself, it's going to make no sense at all, I'm afraid. So the best way to learn is by doing it with somebody that knows how to do it, and then take it from there. And I'm open to people calling me and asking me, hey, what do I do about this, this, and this? I'm okay with that. I'd be happy to do that. I just want to see people start taking some responsibility for feeding themselves and their families. So we're going to talk about pressure canning. I have 2 different types of pressure canners here, one with a gauge and a weight, one with a weight only. This is my electric canner. I primarily use my electric canner for leftovers. If I make a big pot of chili or a big pot of vegetable soup and I have leftovers, this holds 4 pint jars at one time. And because it is a pressure canner, and because chili has number 1 beans and number 2 meat, and vegetable soup usually has chicken or beef in it, plus some type of bean, it has got to be pressure canned. It cannot be water bath canned. Pardon me? No, this is an electric canner. It can be used as a pressure cooker, but I use it as an electric canner only. It does both. It has dual purpose. But I use it, I've never used it to pressure cook in. I use it to pressure can in small batches. And usually if I make a big pot of chili or vegetable soup, I'll have enough left to get at least 3 and usually 4 pint jars to put in here and then preserve. And this is the perfect size for Mike to take in his dinner bucket to work, and they have a microwave. And, of course, I have to take it out of glass because he works at the jail, and you're not allowed to have glass at the jail. So I have to take it out and put it in plastic, but it's just the perfect size for him to take to work for a lunch. This is a water bath canner. All 3 of these are used for low-acid foods: meats, beans, carrots, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, potatoes, broth, dried beans. I want to talk about this too. These are dried beans that I pressure can. We have a lot of dried beans done up in our dry food storage that we have oven canned. But what if you have a power outage and you don't have water, or you have limited water? How are you going to soak those beans in a bunch of water, then dump that off, and then put more water on them to cook? To me, it makes sense to have some that you can use when water isn't an issue, and some that you can have and use when water is an issue. All you have to do with these is open them up and add them to whatever you're doing with it, or just eat them as they are. So when you're pressure canning dry beans, though, in quarts, you only want to add, and you can write some of this down if you want to, and we'll go over it again. You only want to add 1 1/3 cups of dry beans to your quart jar. Then you want to fill it to the neck with boiling water. Add a teaspoon of salt for a quart, 1/2 teaspoon if you were doing them in pints. A lot of people do not add salt when they're canning. I do, and I do it for 2 reasons. The first reason is salt is a preservative in and of itself. If there would be any bacteria in your jar that didn't come out with hot water sanitizing it, or a lot of people use their dishwasher to sanitize their jars, if there were a little bit of bacteria somewhere in that jar, adding the salt to the food before you pressure can it is going to take care of that bacteria. Number 2, and maybe even more important than the bacteria issue, what if by the end of 2022, salt isn't available? I'm seeing where salt is one of the things that's short in supply on the shelves right now. What if by the end of this year, you can't even get salt? The human body needs salt to survive. It just makes sense to me with the bacteria issue and with having the salt already in there in case there is no salt available. It's already there. Your food is still going to taste good because you've already prepared it with the salt in it. Yes? As long as you keep it sealed up in something with a lid like this, this is just a ball lid that's made to keep all moisture out. I use it a lot when I do dehydrating. Salt is a permanent, indefinite food. It will keep forever. I wouldn't leave it in a paper thing. We take ours out and put them in jars or vacuum seal them. We're going to talk about vacuum sealing too some tonight. I'm not a huge vacuum sealer. They're nice to have, but the bags are very expensive. But you can vacuum seal your jar lids, and that's what we're going to use the brake bleeder for. It's just a little trick, something fun. I forget where I was. I get sidetracked. That's all right. You're allowed. I was talking about salt in the food. If the salt's already in it, you're good to go. When I boil chicken or beef or whatever, I always make sure that I have a lot of bone broth and stock. After you get your jars filled with the meat and you put enough liquid on it to can it properly, you're still going to have a bunch of bone broth left. There's nothing better than bone broth to cook with for soups and stews, or if you have someone in your family home sick. Nothing comforts a tummy like home canned chicken stock. Do not get rid of it. Just because it won't all go in your jars that you're canning your chicken or your turkey. And I have turkey, chicken, and brisket up here tonight that I brought. We love canned brisket. Go ahead and just put it in jars. You can it the same way you do meat because it's a meat derivative. Pints need to be pressure canned at 75 pounds of pressure. Quarts need to be pressure canned for 90 minutes. So 75 minutes for pints. I said that wrong, didn't I? 75 minutes for pints, 90 minutes for quarts. And for our area, how far above sea level are you guys over here? We're in Marion and we're flat. Guidelines for where we're at is 11 pounds of pressure, but depending on how high you are here in Richland County, I know you're quite a bit higher than we are. I don't know if you're high enough that it would need to go up to 12 or 13 pounds or not. You would need to check with like your extension agent. Does anybody know? Pardon me? It's still 11 pounds of pressure for over here for you guys? Okay, well, that's good to know because we're so flat over there, and we're 11 pounds over there, too. So 11 pounds of pressure. So, yes? No, do not use iodized salt in your canning. Especially, it's not so bad if you're water bath canning, but when you pressurize foods that have got iodized salt in them, the iodine can take on a really funky taste, and it can make your food taste kind of foul. I use kosher sea salt. I buy a big box of Morton's kosher sea salt, and that's what I use. Yeah. I buy it in the big box, and we have a grocery outlet over in Logan County. It's called Stites. I was told that at one time there was a Stites in this area. I don't know if it's still here or not. But you can buy the big box of Morton's kosher sea salt at Stites for like $1.49 for the great big box. So, yes. I'm sure. It's just I like getting the best deal for my money and because all my sisters live over there. Yes. Yes, you can, and we're going to talk about that too. The only type of jar that like you get pasta sauce or spaghetti sauce or fruit or something in, the only type of jar that you can pressure can in that has got pre-packaged food in it are the ones that specifically say Atlas Mason jars. I've dehydrated in these now, but originally this had Alfredo sauce in it. Alfredo sauce. When I bought it at the store, it was Alfredo sauce. But because it's an Atlas Mason jar, you can sterilize that jar and you can actually pressure can in this jar. Now, this is a pasta sauce jar that's not an Atlas Mason. If you were to pressure can in this, your jar may crack. You may lose the food. But you can hot water bath can in it. There's a lot of food that you're going to be able to, anything that's got high acid in it, fruits, tomatoes, juices, things of that nature, you're going to be able to hot water bath can that. You're not going to have to pressure can that. And you can use, so don't ever throw glass jars away that you get at the grocery store with food in them. Save them. There's something you can do. And even the lids that come with, this lid will seal. This isn't sealed because this is one that I've dehydrated some squash in, and we use out of this. This didn't have to be sealed. But if you would put this in a hot water bath canner with this lid on it and process it with the instructions that I'll be giving you when we're actually doing hands-on, this lid would seal, just like it did when you bought it. And these lids are good for, I've got some that we've probably canned in 4 times that are still sealing. They're still fine. Don't let them tell you you have to throw your lids away. Yes?
For somebody that's never canned anything, and I know nothing about canned food, what is the most simplest out of all the things you got up there?
Of all the things that I have up here, the simplest would be water bath canning, dehydrating your food. Oven canning is extremely easy. It's called oven canning. This is oven canning. You do this in your oven with flours. I have white flour. I have, which cereal is this? Oat Squares. I have grape nuts, cornmeal, old-fashioned oats, pancake mix, and grits. The white flour, the grits, the cornmeal, the old-fashioned oats have up to 25-year shelf life once they're oven canned properly, and it's easy to do. The pancake mix and the 2 jars of cereal have up to 15-year shelf life. You have to be careful if you're dry canning cereal because you want to get a cereal that has the lowest amount of sugar in it. Because the sugar will start to, when you have it in the oven, the sugar will start to, it won't really get liquidy, but it could get sticky. And you don't want that. So try, if you're like Cheerios are a great thing to oven can if you're a Cheerios eater. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So I'm just kind of hopping all over. I'm sorry. But I want to answer your questions as you ask. Yes, Ted?
How long does like meat and other stuff last? I know you said 15 years old.
This is meat that I canned in April of 20 and August of 20. We have not used any of this meat yet because we are still using the brisket, the beef, and the turkey that I canned in 2015. We're about to the end of it, but it's still as fresh and as good as the day I canned it. So that's 7 years. So you can, you don't have to. We have a 3-bedroom house. 2 of our bedrooms are upstairs. All of our kids are grown. We store our canned goods in the spare bedrooms upstairs. Now, our dry canned stuff, we store that in a whole separate place because I'll explain later why. But, yes.
So dating your canned goods is
Yes.
a very
Yes.
important thing.
It is important. It's very important. Things like Brussels sprouts. I know a lot of people don't like Brussels sprouts. We do. You're going to have at least a 5-year shelf life on this. And a little trick that I do when I'm even canning a low-acid food like this, we like lemon. I will put a tablespoon of lemon juice in the low-acid foods that I'm canning just as an extra barrier of protection against any type of spoilage or bacteria growing. There's so many things that you can do. I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed. I had a mother and a grandmother that this is what they did. I mean, I'm one of 9 kids. We had to. If you wanted to eat, you had to can it. You had to catch it, kill it, cook it, can it, and eat it. That's just how it was. So, Dave, did you have a question, or are you just handing out the microphone?
I'm just handing
Out the microphone. Are there any other questions before? Yes. Have you ever had a bag of flour in your cupboard and you think it's been in there maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, and you take it out to bake cookies and you take the lid off the canister and it's like, this smells really strong. This does not smell like fresh flour. Flour does go rancid, and it goes rancid fairly quickly, especially whole wheat and whole grain flours because there's a lot more oil in whole wheat. That's why I don't dry can whole wheat flour, because the shelf life on dry canned whole wheat flour is only about 5 years. On all-purpose flour, it's up to 25 years on just white. And even white unbleached. White unbleached, absolutely. You can oven can that. It won't look white in your jars because it's not white when it comes out of the bag. But it still has the same shelf life as white all-purpose flour. There's just really no way. Yes. Yes, I am, Terry. I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm just wondering, are you going to be giving us any tips on products like, I know salt and soda mixed together. If we can't get toothpaste, my dad was an oral surgeon, so I know you can use salt.
I would like to do a class on things like that. Once we get through all the canning and food preservation, I would like to get more into that type of survival thing. But yes, I would like to. So, you didn't know I was so weird, did you, Bones?
My question is, this is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
We're glad to be here tonight. And my question is, I studied the Bible for about maybe 60 years, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were farmers, and time he made Adam and Eve, to me, now this is me, I think they were farmers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all those prophets. They growed all their stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't go to a grocery store. They growed all their
They
stuff.
grew it, yeah.
My question is, do you think they were vegetarians?
I mean, the Bible is pretty clear about when God told the people it was okay to start eating meat. So I don't think his original plan for man was to be a carnivore. That's just my opinion. That's just the Bible according to Jerry. This is not God said to say this, not at all.
But he did feed them
But-
meat, though.
Well, later on down the road, yes, he did tell them it was okay.
But in
to eat.
Leviticus, he tells them what to eat, what not to eat.
Exactly.
And I just thought maybe they were. I know they were farmers back then because they grow their own stuff.
Yeah.
And I was telling my wife, I said, I'm glad she's doing this. It's going to help a lot of people. And
I hope so.
my cousin's husband, he's with the Lord now. He went out and he growed all his stuff. He canned red peppers, yellow peppers, green peppers, everything. And before he died, he had about 100 canning jars.
Yeah. Well, it's probably safe to say that Mike and I probably have 2,000 canning jars, and they're full. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I shared with Sunday. One of my biggest concerns is with the way things are going in our nation right now, not just in our nation, but around the entire world. It would crush my heart to know that my husband, my kids, and my grandkids were hungry. That's just very hard for me to even try to comprehend. Or our neighbor across the road has got two of the most precious little boys you'd ever want to see. Him and his wife are hard workers. But what if they came over and said, we have no food, our kids are hungry. We want to be able to help people, if we can, that are in a situation where there may not be food. Do I think we're all going to have to tailor the way we eat down? Yes, I do. I don't think we're going to be able to eat, possibly even by the end of this year, the way we are used to eating. We're spiraling out of control so fast in this nation and in the world that we've got to start taking responsibility for feeding ourselves and our families. We have to. We have to know what's in the food that we're putting into our babies' bodies. We've got to know that. It's important. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. You guys are supposed to be asking me questions. So anything else before I even go on down the line further? Examples of hot water bath canning, like I said, are high-acid foods. This is tomato chutney that I canned this year. It's very good. Not only does it have tomato in it, which is a high-acid food, but it's also a vinegar and sugar-based sauce that you make. It's got peppers and onions and garlic and yellow tomatoes and red tomatoes and orange tomatoes, but it's also in a vinegar. So you've got a double whammy here against bacteria. You've got the vinegar that also takes the acidity up, plus you've got the yellow tomatoes are very low acid. The peppers are very low acid. The red tomatoes are acidic, but there's lemon juice in this too. So this is something that's perfectly fine to hot water bath can. One example, this is Cowboy Candy. Who else had Cowboy Candy here? Oh my gosh, how many jalapeno lovers do we have here? All right. Cowboy Candy is jalapenos that you slice into fairly large slices. You make a syrup, a thick syrup. There's a whole lot of sugar in this. There's sugar and vinegar and garlic and turmeric and salt and pepper. And you mix, and it's a high amount of sugar. I don't have my recipe in front of me, but anybody that wants it, I will bring it to you. You cook that syrup on the stove until it cooks down and it's kind of thick, and then you dump all your jalapenos in it. And you let that cook for 8 minutes. Then you scoop the jalapenos out and you pack the hot jalapenos in your sanitized jars. Well, then you put the syrup back on the stove and you cook it till it's even thicker. Well, by this time, because all the jalapenos have been in, you can tell how hot that sauce is going to be. Well, when it's good and thick, then you ladle it over the jalapenos, screw the lids on, put it in your hot water bath canner. Because there's vinegar, even though the jalapenos are low acid, the vinegar and the sugar is what makes it safe to hot water bath this one. So we may open this jar next week and let you guys sample them, anybody that wants to be brave. They're hot. They are hot. This is pickled beets. I love pickled beets. Either you love them or you hate them. We love them. And most of this stuff is grown on our property. I forgot to tell you that. Other than the dry beans, I buy them in bulk at the store. But the other vegetables that you see, we don't have meat on our farm. Like I explained earlier. Wish we did, but we're kind of on the fence about that one, aren't we, honey? Yeah. But the vegetables that you see here, even the fruit that you see here, comes from our property. We have apple trees, peach trees, pear trees, blackberries, elderberries, rhubarb. I had cherries, but my cherry trees died. We don't know why. They got like a fungus and they died. We haven't replaced those yet. What other fruit do we have, honey? Is that it? Oh, yes, we have 2 grape arbors, one at the side of our house and one blackberries. And we have wild raspberries along the fence row at the clear back of our property. We have wild raspberries, yeah. And we have tame well, I don't know if tame is the word, but we have normal elderberries and we have wild elderberries, both. And we use them. Yes, Dave.
It's already been brought up about dating your jars
Yes.
when you're done with them?
Yes.
Okay, like typically if you have from the store a can that says used by 2017,
Mm-hmm.
is that still good probably? Or
Yes. And anymore, I don't even think they say use by anymore. I think what the FDA has changed it to now is best by.
best
And they put a certain date on it.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of commentary on this, and I tend to go along with what I've heard. That best by date was something that came about after the Great Depression, when manufacturing was starting back up, people were getting back to work, and they were wanting to put a big boost into the economy. The FDA's thoughts on that were, if we can get people to think that their food has gone bad and they'll pitch it, they will go out and buy more to replace it, and it's going to boost the economy. Those best by dates, we pay no attention to them. We had pasta sauce last week or 2 weeks ago that said best by 9 of 17, I think, and it was perfectly fine. I mean, if you open it, if the seal's not pressed in, if the button on your pasta like this, if that's not pushed in, absolutely don't eat that. Or if you take the lid off and it doesn't smell right, don't eat it. But you can eat past that best by date.
Okay, I have a question. If you buy a roast at Kroger's, say,
Mhm.
and it's just in their packaging, which I did when I thought we need to be prepping, and then I'm not good at rotating, so I have like 3 of them now that are way outdated. Like they're 20 used by 2020, and it's 2022.
Are they in your freezer?
They're in a freezer.
And did you put them down in an additional bag before you froze them, or did you just chuck them in the freezer with
Just chuck
the
them
Kroger
in.
packaging?
Chuck them in.
If it's freezer burnt,
Uh-huh.
I probably would not eat it. If there's no freezer burn on it, I would get it out and can it up.
If it's freezer burn, you can't cut the freezer burn off and eat the rest?
If it's freezer burnt, what Mike and I do, we turn it into dog food for our dog.
You do what?
We turn it into dog food
Dog
for our
food.
dog. Do you know how hard it is to find pet food right now?
Oh, I know.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, and any of my, and I forgot to talk to about canning the chicken. When I buy the chicken that I can, I try to buy, and we're going to Walmart tomorrow. Well, I am. Mike has to work. They have 10-pound bags of chicken leg quarters right now at Walmart for $6.38 a 10-pound bag. That's 63 cents a pound. You're not going to find chicken cheaper than that right now. I plan on buying 2 10-pound bags, 20 pounds of chicken leg and quarters. I'm going to bring it home. I'm going to put it in my big stock pot that I didn't bring tonight. I will cook that down. Once it's cooked, I will take it out of the broth, put it on a cookie sheet, let it cool, and it will dry as it cools. When it's cool, then I will take off the skin. I will pull the meat off the bones. I will put the bones back into another big pot, put additional water on it with some of the broth and a little bit of apple cider vinegar, a couple of onions, a couple of carrots, and I'll let that simmer and make a very, very rich bone broth. The skin that I peel off of the chicken, I don't throw that away either. We turn that into pet food. So you can freeze it, you can can it, just like you do any other meat. When you read on the back of a label of what's in, what do you think they do with all those chicken skins? It goes in your dog food. It goes in your cat food. That's what they do with it. So why not do it yourself and save that money? Yes?
If you're going to turn it into dog food, do you grind it up first?
You can. It depends on your dog. It depends on what your dog's used to and what your dog likes. A small dog, definitely I would grind it up. But a big dog that likes to take the head off a running deer, I would just leave it in chunks. And that's another thing. You can pressure can wild game too. I don't know if any of you guys are hunters. I used to be a Michigan deer hunter because I lived in Michigan. But you can pressure can wild game too, and it's wonderful. It's very good. So you do it the same way as you do any other meat. Yes? Well, you know you can. You bought me one. Thanks for the question, honey. Mike ordered it for me on Amazon. It's called a jar key. It does not look like a normal can opener. It's got a wide ledge underneath, like a hook, that fits at the very edge of your flat. Yeah, you put it under here. This is sealed, so I won't pull real hard on this. But you put it under here, and you pull up on it. It releases the pressure in your jar without damaging your lid. So you can use your flats over again. The FDA says never use a flat over again. Use them one time and throw them away. Oh, crap. Have you seen how expensive these things are at the store? Use them again. And if you would have a little... I shouldn't have said that, should I? I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, Rabbi. If there would be like a little divot on the edge of your lid, what they tell you to do is take that lid and roll it on like a glass cutting board or a metal cookie sheet. Roll it like this, right where that little burr is. Flatten that burr out. Sanitize that lid and use it again. So don't. My theory is if the FDA tells you not to do something, you probably should be doing it. So are there any other questions? I'm blind, Ted. What time is it? 22. Okay. Oh, we got plenty of time. Are there any other questions? Then I'm going to go back to the hot water bath canning, some other examples. This is grape juice. Oh, no, it's not. This is my blackberry pie and cobbler filling. This is something else that was water bath canned. Most berries are very high in acid. You cannot use cornstarch if you want to thicken. For maybe a couple of months, it would look okay in your jar, and then it would start breaking down, and your fillings would start to look very runny, very loose, and they might even start taking on a little bit of a funky, cloudy color. What I use in mine is instant tapioca. Another little trick. It does not do this. Well, this is fairly new. I can this. Well, blackberries were getting ripe in July, so probably the end of July of 21 is when I can this. It's just as thick and bright and pretty as the day I canned it, but I used minute tapioca in it. Any of these recipes I will be happy to bring anybody that wants them. Yes. No, I did not. No, and a lot of people ask me that. If you're a person who can't tolerate seeds, I have a brother-in-law who he can't have seeds of any kind. If you're a person who can't tolerate seeds, by all means, run it through a sieve and take them out. The research that I've done is the seeds in tomatoes, the seeds in blackberry, well, the seeds in most things is where a high portion of your nutrients are. And if there's any way you can keep them in and eat them, leave them in and eat them. Especially the lycopenes in tomato seeds, one of the best cancer killers there is. So, this is our blackberry. Yes. Yes, and that's perfectly fine. I know a lot of people do when they're making jams and jellies especially. Maybe not so much with pie fillings, but a lot of people do with jams and jellies. I don't. The size of the jar. One you put under crust and one you put on biscuits. Hey. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is the pizza sauce that I canned. I canned this. I usually do my pizza sauce towards the end of the garden season because I take whatever onions are left, whatever peppers are left, whatever tomatoes are left, whatever. And we have grown celery before. We didn't this year, but you know, if you have celery, you put it in a big pot, you let it cook down until it's the thickness that you want, the consistency you want. It does have some vinegar in it, again, a preservative when you're canning. It has a little bit of lemon juice, it has lots of garlic. It has a little bit of olive oil. You don't want to go overboard with oils when you're canning. Things like this, a little bit is fine, but you want to stay away from things like vegetable oil, peanut oil. Probably what you would want to use is like a safflower oil, a sunflower seed oil, avocado oil, olive oil, and you still don't use a lot. Probably for the whole pot that I cooked down, and I think we ended up with a whole case of pizza sauce. I probably used maybe 3 tablespoons of olive oil in that whole big batch. So there's not a lot of olive oil in it, but there is a little bit in it. Then you put it in your jars, put the lids on, put it in your hot water bath canner, you hot water bath can it. This is our cranberry orange sauce. Best time to buy your whole cranberries is when Thanksgiving's over because everybody wants to get rid of them. We go to Kroger's and we usually get the big 2-pound bag. Last time I bought 2-pound bags at Kroger after Thanksgiving, which was not this Thanksgiving, but a year ago, they had them clearanced out for 49 cents a bag. You pay more than that for the little teeny tiny bag. You pay like $2 anymore for just a little teeny tiny bag. So I did can enough cranberry orange sauce over a year ago that we still have enough to get us through this year and probably part of next year. But again, you add your sugar because cranberries are so high in acid. You don't need to add anything. We just like cranberry orange, the flavor of it mixed together. So I usually grate up the zest off of 2 or 3 oranges. Then I squeeze all the juice out of them. I add it to the cranberries and the sugar. I add a pinch of salt to anything sweet that I'm canning. You don't want to put enough salt in it that you taste the salt. But anytime you add a little bit of salt to anything sweet that you're canning, it enhances the flavor of it. That holds true to even if you're not canning it, if you're just making it to eat fresh. A tiny pinch of salt enhances the flavor in anything sweet that you're making. You won't taste the salt, but boy, it will enhance the flavor of what you're fixing. And the human body needs a little bit of salt. This is my strawberry rhubarb jam. No, this is my cherry jam. This is cherry jam. Like I said, our cherry trees died, but I had several bags of cherries in the freezer. I got those out, thawed them, cooked them. I did run them through the sieve to get the seeds out. And then I just followed the Sure Gel recipe on the box. Put it a lot of times with jams and jellies, you don't even need to hot water bath them. If you want it for long-term storage, I would go ahead and water bath can it. But if you're planning on eating your jams and jellies in the next 12, 15 months, you don't even have to water bath can it. Yes. Yeah. It's much easier to use wax on jellies than it is jam. And the reason for that is Jelly is liquid, jelly is smooth. It lays level in your jars. Jam won't. Jam will have little bumps and, pieces of fruit that to try to completely cover that enough to seal it in wax, you're going to have thick places of wax, you're going to have thin places of wax because it's not going to be smooth across the top like jelly is. But yes, you can still, my mom and my grandma always waxed our jams and jellies, always. No, you don't have to. You can put a lid on. And this is another example of a lid and a jar that was not a canning jar. However, if you buy jam and jelly in the store, chances are it's been hot water bath processed, right? At least steam processed some way. So don't ever throw your glass jars and the lids out. Save them, ladies. You can use them, especially for hot water bath canning. Like I said, don't pressure can them unless they say ball mason or ball combination or either or. But save your jars to hot water bath can, and it's safe. And if you've priced canning jars in the store lately, it's ridiculous. This is relish. Yes. Well, because we live out in the country and we have farmers all around us, if you plant sweet corn and your farmer is planting field corn, your corn cross-pollinates and your sweet corn is horrible. So I try not to ever, we do plant corn occasionally, but it's like we get it in so late because we have to wait and see what the farmer has planted and what's coming up in the fields around us. So, but we love corn. We love corn. So, usually I freeze it. Usually I do freeze it. However, in the day and age we're living in, how do you know you're going to have electric power? You don't. So anything that you can, or you could even dehydrate your corn if you wanted to, and then just reconstitute it and use it as you were getting ready to use it. You could dehydrate it. Yes? You can. You have to wash it very, 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 very well in warm water, not hot water, because you'll melt your wax, and then you'll plug up your drain pipes. Don't ask me how I know this. I'm telling on myself, aren't I? But yes, you can reuse it. You want to make sure that it's very clean, very dry. Store it like in a Ziploc bag or two to keep any moisture or air out of it. But yes, you can reuse your wax. The FDA does not tell you to. Well, the FDA tells you not to even use wax anymore. Hello, our moms and grandmas did it for years. What made it okay then, but not okay now? You tell me. I'm not an FDA fan, am I? Okay, now I'm moving right on along in another direction. This is pickle relish. Actually, this is green tomato relish. You've all had relish. You do it hot water bath can it because it's in a vinegar, sugar solution, just like all of this for the most part is. Again, end of season thing when it's getting ready to frost, but you still have green tomatoes. Take them out and make relish with them. Yes?
I have a question about the heat source. I was told, because I was kind of, off and on into canning and that if you didn't have a stove that was like a gas stove, you had like the glass top and that you couldn't do the canning on it.
My stove is a glass top stove, and I use both of these pressure canners on my stove. Now, my glass top stove that we just got rid of 6 months ago, I couldn't use this great big one. It never got my great big one, it never got hot enough to get it up to pressure.
Okay.
This one I had no problem with. But on the stove that I have now, I can use both of them. There's no issues.
I just wondered because
What you don't want to do is, because this thing is heavy. When it's full of jars and it's full of water, you don't want to slide it across your glass top stove and scratch your glass, because anytime you get a little fissure in your glass on your cooktop stove, if it's going to break, that's where it's going to break. It's where those deep scratches are. So always try, if you've got the muscles, Or you have a big, strong husband. Just have him pick it up. Jeff, you might have a new job there, buddy. Just pick it up. Just pick it up and move it over if you're wanting it off the heat to cool it down quickly. Any other questions? Oh, we've got about 5 minutes. Oh, and I didn't get nearly as far. Okay, this was an interesting thing here. This is cabbage and carrots. I did not grow this. I was at the grocery store late last summer, maybe, and Kroger had all these bags of cabbage and carrots mixed in a bag, like a salad mix, but it was nothing but cabbage and lots of carrots. And they had it clearanced out for 49 cents for the big bag. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the date on the bag, and it's not outdated. It's probably still 5-6 days away from the out date on it. So I asked the little girl in the produce department why this was marked down so inexpensively. And she said because they had ordered way too much in. So to get rid of it, they'd marked it down. So I thought, well, you know what I'm going to do. So I bought several bags of it, took it home because carrots are low acid, and because cabbage is low acid, I have this in the wrong spot. This I did in this pressure canner, but I had enough to do it. 2 canners full of this, and it's nothing but cabbage and carrots, and it's wonderful. Of course, we like cabbage, so yes. Really? That's good to know. We should do some day trips over there, ladies. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 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 good fertilizer. Yeah, and have you guys seen how the fertilizer shortage now is affecting the farmers too? Not just in the United States, but around the world. Now they have a major fertilizer crisis shortage. Really? We're going to have to do. Ladies, I think we need to start a canning club and a road trip club to Amish country. We live in Marion County. We don't have any Amish over there. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. We need to take a road trip when it's produce time, ladies, and because with the way prices are in the store right now, you're going to have to look for bargains to be able to can this. You're going to have to. And canning jars are off the hook right now. A case of pints right now is between $11 and $12 for the regular mouth. For the wide mouth pints, it's $13 a case. The quarts are even more than that. So they do. Ladies, you know where you can go get some canning jars now. That's awesome. Yes, and yard sales. I've bought them at yard sales. I've bought them at Goodwill. My kids have bought me jars before. Yeah. That's good to know. We're going to have to do some road trips to these places, girls. Get some bargains. Okay, guys, we've got about 2 minutes left. Next week, I saved the fun ones to last. The dehydrating, the oven canning, the fermenting, and as you can see, don't anybody judge me. I asked Rabbi, Mike and I make wine. And it's good wine. It's made with the fruit that we grow on our property. It's a type of fermentation. So, and he said, absolutely, you can bring that. So, the Bible does not say you can't have a glass of wine. It says don't be drunk with wine. Do I want to be a stumbling block to somebody? Absolutely not. And we're told in God's word we're not to be a stumbling block to somebody, to anybody. But Proverbs also says that a little wine does a stomach good. So I'm not advocating for anybody to take this bottle and go drink the whole bottle. That's not my intent at all. But Mike and I do make wine. We make very good wine. And there's no additives in it. There's no preservatives in it. All of our wines, every type of wine we make is nothing but fruit pulp, fruit juice, sugar, and distilled water. That's it. And yeast. Obviously yeast. Yes. No, in Ohio, if you're it's like a hobby for Mike and I. You have to have a license to sell home brew in Ohio. Bones, when do you want us to expect you there, buddy? Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. The Bible says, "Be not drunk with wine." It doesn't say you can't have a glass of wine. It says, "Be not drunk with wine." Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I'll tell you what, if you've got a cold, if you've got a sore throat, yes. Yes. Do we still have a microphone? We got to get ready to close. Yeah. One more question, and then we're going to end in prayer. So I'm going to ask my hubby to come up and pray
It's
for us.
also important to have that wine because in a situation where water
Yes.
wouldn't be potable.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I never looked at it like
yeah,
that.
wine is, which is why they drank wine
Yeah.
a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe that the biblical wine was just grape juice.
No.
We're talking about a hot country
Yeah, they drank wine because
with
it
a
was safe
very
to
long
drink.
growing season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And who was more loved of God than Noah? And Noah did a bad boo-boo and got extremely drunk, and God didn't kick him out of the tent, did he? No, he did not. So, okay. Oh, that's good. Okay, this is sauerkraut that I started last night. We're going to check this again next week and see how it's progressing. This is bread starter dough that I started last night. It already has got a lot of big bubbles on top. I'm hoping by the time we're done teaching this class in a week or two, Rabbi said I can do 3 weeks if I want to. I'm hoping I have enough starter in here that anybody that wants a bread starter can have one to take home with them and continue on and start making. What are you going to do if you don't have yeast? All that's in this is flour and water, and it pulls natural wild yeast out of the air. There is no processed yeast in this. It's just pulling wild yeast out of the air. I told Rabbi we would be done at 8, and it's a minute after. So Mike's going to pray for us.
All right. Sure. Thank you for this night.
Yes, God. Yes, Lord. Yes, God. Yes, God.
God, just thank you, God, of
Yes, God. Yes. Yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God. Amen. Another thing about the wine, I know we're done recording. This is just